Good afternoon, dear friends. Today, I'm going to speak about the importance of education for Roma children. And I'm a university professor, originally from Bulgaria, but now I live in Germany, in Berlin. And at the same time, I teach at the University of Katowice in Poland. 30 years ago, I got interested in this problem when I was in Bulgaria, because that time I saw a lot of Roma children were sent to special schools because the Roma children didn't speak good Bulgarian language. And the educational system considered them to be mentally retarded. And I was a young teacher 35 years ago, and I saw that the children are not mentally retarded. They simply don't speak good Bulgarian. And I decided to do something. Then at the beginning of the 90s, after the changes in Bulgaria, after 1990s, I started to promote the idea that the Romani language of the children should be used in the educational system as the mother tongue. That time, these ideas were not known in Europe. No one was speaking about the importance of the mother tongue for Roma children. In many East European countries like Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Serbia, the Roma children were sent to special schools. And when they finished the special schools, they couldn't get higher education. They couldn't find jobs. And they had to live in their Roma type of ghettos, settlements where they couldn't get out of the poverty. So then in 1990s, after 1990, in 1993, 1994, 5, I started to publish textbooks in Romani language, the first textbooks in Romani in Bulgaria, for primary school children. And for kindergarten children, I started to publish children's books in Romani language. This was not well received, these ideas. The Roma were saying, the parents of the children were saying that, yeah, our children don't need to study Romani. They need to study Bulgarian or English. But actually, the parents didn't understand that instead of learning English or without knowing Bulgarian, and instead of learning just Bulgarian, the basics of the cognitive development of the children comes from their mother tongue. So, with other words, if we want the Roma children to know very well Bulgarian language, Polish language, Hungarian language, Czech language, they have to know very well Romani as their mother tongue. If they know well the mother tongue, Romani, they will learn also very well the other languages, English or French or Spanish, and etc. In 1999, I went to University of San Francisco, to California, and I had to do there some kind of internship. I got a scholarship, and I had to attend classes of intercultural education together with one American professor whose name was Alma Florada. Alma Florada was a children's books writer. And once in one of the workshops which she organized, I was telling her about one of my ideas to write a children's book about one moment of my life. In Bulgaria, in 1980s, 1984, 1985, the Muslim Roma, the names of Muslim Roma were changed. So from Muslim names, they got Christian names. And this was done by force. There were soldiers coming to the houses of the people. There were tanks, dogs, soldiers with automat Kalashnikov coming to the houses, beating the people if they didn't agree to change their names. So then I was telling her that this is part of the Roma history, Muslim Roma history in Bulgaria. And this professor told me, well, why you don't write a book for children? And then I said, well, I don't know how to write a book for children. I never wrote a book for children. And then she explained to me that she will support me, she will help me. And we wrote together one book, which was published in 2004 in the United States. And the title of the book was My Name Was Hussein. And actually, this is a biographical book about one small boy in the school and how his name was changed and what happened to his family and how did he feel and all this sad story. And this book got a lot of prizes in Europe and in United States and in Canada as well, being one of the best multicultural, intercultural books for children. For many years, the book existed only in English. I didn't translate it into Romani, but this year, being now in Germany, I decided to translate it into German and into Romani language. So the same story with different illustrations and again made for Roma children accessible. Together with Jan Hancock, in 2005, we published this children's book, which is called A History of the Romani People. And with a lot of pictures, photos, we were telling the history of Roma people, how they came to Europe from India, and what happened to Roma when they were in Europe in mid-centuries, especially the history during the Nazi time. So why it is important to write children's books for Roma children in Romani language? One American professor, Charles Temple, in one of his books, somewhere here in my library, he wrote that the school has to be like mirror and window. Mirror, because every child has to see himself in the school. And window, because the school has to give a knowledge about the whole world as a window, information. So the school is not made only for children who are speaking perfectly well Bulgarian, Czech language, Italian language, English language. The school is made also for children who do not speak perfectly well those official languages, and they have Romani dialect or Sinto dialect as their mother tongue. Unfortunately, the racism and the discrimination in the societies for the last 30 years increases, and the discrimination of Roma children increases also in the schools. Nowadays, still, there are thousands of segregated Roma schools in Europe. Nowadays, Roma children do not have still access to education with high quality. In many East European countries, the children are visiting schools, attending schools which are based in the Roma settlements with very poor conditions, with very, very limited conditions. And this doesn't give chance to Roma children to develop well, to get enough knowledge and to be integrated in the society. So the ideas which I have are that we should make new research with Roma children, and we should speak more publicly to teachers, to university professors, to child psychologists, to psychotherapists, that to make clear that the Roma children are just normally developing children as any other children, but this that they grow up in poverty doesn't make them mentally retarded, doesn't make them disabled. So recently, together with one American professor, last 10 years, we are doing research on the knowledge of the children, how much they know from the Romani grammar. And we did this research in countries like Bulgaria, Macedonia, Serbia, Croatia, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Sweden, England, and in Russia. So we created a test with difficult grammatical categories. For example, the passive verbs in Romani language, or the possessiveness in Romani language. How we will say the flower is belonging to the woman, or how we will say the horse belongs to the man, or how we will say the dog was kicked by the horse in Romani. And when we say that, what the children understand. And when I say the children, I mean very young children, when the children are 3 years old, 3.5 years old. So very often the teachers were telling to me, the kindergarten teachers, well, they don't know anything. Don't waste your time to do research. And I remember once I was in Slovakia in a very, very poor kindergarten. The kindergarten was made outside of the town in the Roma settlement. And the Roma settlement was these very old buildings, houses, which remained maybe from the 50s and 60s, with no electricity, no water, no any conditions there. And the town decided to make a kindergarten there for these children. When I went there and when I saw the poverty, I said, oh my God, there is no way that these children will know these grammatical categories, because they are very, very difficult, very, very complex. So we have tense and aspect of the verb. We have WH questions and a lot of complex grammatical categories. Then I was working with the children, and I had to test these small children. And I remember one boy who was 4.5, 5 years old. And I was bringing, of course, some chocolates, biscuits to give to the children as well. And I was having conversations with them about their families and brothers, sisters, and etc. And when I saw this small child, I said, yeah, it's impossible that he will know all these grammatical categories. But for my big surprise, this child answered almost all the difficult grammatical questions which I was asking. Then I asked the teacher, from which kind of family comes this child? What the teacher knows about the family? And the teacher was saying to me, oh, these are very poor, very dirty family. The father is alcoholic and the mother is a drug user and they are very bad, and etc. and etc. So even when we have this kind of families, when the Romani language is used in the home, then the children knows the language. So which means that they have developed their cognitive abilities. And now the prejudices of the people is this which is an obstacle. The teachers think that if this child is coming from such a poor family and the parents are alcoholic or drug users, then the child definitely should be also mentally retarded or without any knowledge about anything. It's exactly the opposite. In these families, it seems the Romani language is intensively used. The basic grammatical skills of Romani language are acquired from very early age. And this could be one very good ground basics for development of the second language, for learning the second or the third language of the children. However, the teachers do not know how to work with this kind of children. Usually they say that, well, he will never learn, he will never succeed in his life. Why should I waste my time? But actually they are wrong. In every child, there is a capacity, and this capacity has to be seen by the teacher and developed. The teacher has to work on it in order to make the child successful in school and later in life. So with these tests, which we tested the children, the Roma children, more than 350 children all over Europe and Russia, 85% of the children by the age of 5 years old, they know the most difficult grammatical categories from Romani language. So this shows that the child is not mentally retarded. This shows that the teachers should learn something about Romani language and something about the Romani grammatical categories in order to understand and to see how difficult is Romani language and how these Roma children still successfully acquire those categories and use them in their everyday language. However, the contemporary schools are not made in such a way that they can use the knowledge of the child from the house. So all these knowledges which the children bring from their families, the rich Roma culture, the traditions, the beauty of the language, the Romani songs, the Roma fairy tales, they are not considered to be a richness for the child, but exactly the opposite. So there are even scientists and who write that the biggest problem of the Roma children nowadays is this, that they speak Romani language. There was such a scientist in Czech Republic who published an article approximately 10 years ago and who was saying that the problem of the Roma children is their mother tongue, their Romani language. This is totally wrong. Because if the school system doesn't know how to use this richness, this is not the problem of the Roma child. This is the problem of the school system. And this is the problem of the teachers, because in their trainings in the university, the teachers never got any knowledge and training how to use the richness of the Romani language and culture. which could help them to make the educational process much more interesting and to develop the skills of the children, the communicative skills of the children in their second language. So the rich oral tradition of Roma and all the songs and fairy tales which the Roma children learn from the parents, grandparents, from the community, and all the traditions, and also publishing children's books in Romani language, it's a very important act. And this should be known by the parents of the children and by the teachers working with Roma children from kindergartens and primary schools, because in kindergartens and in the primary schools, it's laid the ground for the cognitive development. So the cognitive development starts when the children are very, very young. And the Romani language should be used as a tool for the further cognitive development of the children, and of course for the better integration to the school system and to the society. I know that the issue is quite complex, the problem is quite big, and I cannot solve it within 15, 20, 30 minutes speech. But I think that the things what we can do is to provoke each other to think about this. What has to be changed in the system? What has to be changed in the society towards Roma in order that the society sees the beauty of Romani language, the richness of Roma culture, which can be used for the educational purposes. If we succeed somehow to show to the society and to the teachers particularly the importance of the Romani language and culture for the development of the child, then we as Roma activists, as Roma parents, we did our job. From that moment, we have to fight for the sustain, to continue these ideas that Romani should be taught in the schools, in the kindergartens as mother tongue, and Roma culture should be known. Roma history should be known, not only to Roma children, but also to non-Roma children. And as a last point, since last 20 years, the Council of Europe develops educational materials and makes all kinds of recommendations to the member states that Romani should be included in kindergartens, in primary schools, and in secondary schools, actually from the age of 3 years old until 18 years, that the Roma children should learn their mother tongue, and the non-Roma children should learn, should have lessons on Roma culture and Roma history. But unfortunately, our societies, it seems, are not ready for this kind of innovations and this kind of new changes in the educational systems. I will stop here, and I would like to wish to all of you health, mainly health in this very dangerous, crazy COVID time. I would like to wish your children health and happiness. And I will say it also in Romani language. Bachtai sa stipe savorenge, odel te ovel tu mensa. Nai sarav tu menge. Thank you very much. Thank you.